So yeah, I'm excited to be here to talk about hospitality and some new things that are coming up, and some opportunities that are also coming up. Obviously, it's an extremely hard time for the industry. Um, People are trying to keep their doors open, do everything that they possibly can to continue to have business. But there's also so many opportunities in this time with developing a new way of travel and a new way of communicating and of bringing hospitality to a more compassionate, more conscious level, which I think is quite important during this time. So one of the main issues is fear at the moment. Of course, there's government regulations, and we can't we can't travel just yet. So there'll be a lot more information coming in of when it's possible. But the hotels and the places that are really communicating with compassion and showing that they're really taking over all the steps necessary to make people feel comfortable, I think will be the ones that are going to succeed. The bigger companies are coming out with all kinds of regulations about health and safety and cleaning procedures, but they're not really going a little farther into what they're doing to take care of people on an emotional level and communicating well, farther than what standards they have to put into place. So I recently wrote an article with some ideas for hoteliers to be able to implement, to work on now prior to when travel comes back. Just a couple of those topics were to be purpose driven. There's going to be a lot of competition, of course, in hospitality with hotels. So it's the ones that have a really strong message and a strong reason for people to visit them, I think will stand out. So instead of just being a hotel room with a bed, to really offer something that's going to be an experience to people. Also, people are really looking forward to something unique and extraordinary, considering they've been locked up inside, if you want to call it that. Compassion is another area, but I'd like to talk about that a little bit later. Food and beverage is something that I don't think is being brought up enough, to realize that people are really focused at the moment on immunity and immunity boosting. And often, especially in the higher end sector, there can be a lot of quite expensive menu options with little food. And I think that will shift and will change because people will want more food that's going to actually, boost their immune system. And people are quite focused on that now. So to put that message out is another way to stand out, I think, as a leader in the industry, to really be thinking about people and their deeper needs. So I think also, since they're shifting their mentality quite a lot when it comes to how they're seeing space and awareness and quiet, and needing space and needing quiet. So I think that for example, a lot of hotels have smaller gyms in their hotels. And I think that if they were able to convert those into meditation rooms or a silent room, I think people would really appreciate the option to have silence and to be in a place that they can be on their own, away from their family or away from work. Let's see, what else? I think the biggest thing is the compassion factor of really communicating that people will be taken care of. I had an idea of a concept recently. White glove service has been something that we all know is like a timeless symbol of meticulous care and of really cleaning, deep cleaning, and a high level of service, but to potentially change that in a new world to pink glove service, where you can show hotels or show your guests that you are thinking a few steps ahead and that you're up to the times and that you're not just super clean, but you're also a hotel that leads with compassion and cares about its staff and cares about the guest experience. So yeah, I'd like to also take any questions. I know you guys all have your screens off, so I'm just looking at names. But I attended this the last time a couple weeks ago, and it was nice to have the opportunity to have discussion. So if anyone has anything to say, Michael, I can see your face. Hey, Jay. I think you're muted at the moment. Your microphone's muted. Oh, I need to unmute you maybe. Oh, hello?
Yeah.
Oh, now I hear you. Okay.
Yeah. If I may just add, Kelly, you were saying, the emotional level. So I heard something very interesting the other day. I think it was the Bel Air Hotel, and they are placing a lot of focus on onboarding of staff coming back to work. So, anticipating the the needs, the desires of the customer once they walk back into the door or through the door, and they're doing a lot of training on that right now. So that addresses the point of, at an emotional level, how we're going to be treating our customers now and down the line. And there was an interesting term used there. It's called the conflict at the door.
Mm.
So whilst Asia is very used to temperatures being taken, in other parts of the world that might not be taken so well, right? So there's a question of choice, right, being put out there as well. So just to add on to your point of how important the emotional level is going to be.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think the approach of how leaders in the hotels are able to combat this or combat is maybe not the right word, but to be able to handle this and to be able to show people, how they're leading compassionately. Like, for example, if you have a leader who's a bit nervous and frantic about these changes, and then you've got to take people's temperatures as they walk in, it's quite an unnerving situation for everyone.
Yeah.
So the importance of leadership to be able to train the staff to feel calm, train the staff to feel connected to the guests, to know that they're doing something for a bigger purpose, that they're, how to be helpful, how to remain under control these levels are so important for the guest experience, and as well for the staff to be trained by leaders that are able to convey that message, because we don't want to turn hotels into hospitals and into a place where people feel
And there was
it's
another cool
disturbing.
one. I don't want to be taking away other people's time, but there was another today with restaurants opening in Vienna. Today is day one. So there was a really, really cool idea where they're setting up mannequins between tables.
I saw that. It's pretty funny.
So there's a lot of creativity out there, and it's cool to see. So
Yeah.
I'll just share that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think the creativity and the collaboration that's been going on during this period has been incredible. It's forcing people to think in different ways, and I think evolution is about collaboration and not competition. So people are moving into that direction, which is great to see. Yeah, well, it will be interesting to see what the new standards are. I think they're going to be different country to country, and place to place. Like, for example, you have a resort in the middle of nature in Bali is going to have different rules than a boutique hotel in the middle of Manhattan. Each one has to be quite resilient and also really listening to the guests. And so far, there's not so much information available to my knowledge, of how guests, future guests, are feeling about all of this. You know, the industry is doing a lot to put in new standards and to create new standards. Like, as you know, the Marriotts and the big companies are coming up with their own rules. But how the guest really feels about this, and if the guest really wants to, you know, have people in hazmat suits that are spraying the rooms constantly with chemicals, I don't see that translating as a positive.
Yeah. But then, you know what? I think there's a 6 months to 1 year kind of a norm that might come in. And then once we've gone through that vaccine or antibodies or whatever you may call that, once we've gone through that stage, I think that'll be another phase that will come through. But
Yeah.
like you said, your pink or red glove service, I think is a great idea. Has anyone implemented that yet?
No, maybe we should start it.
I know. All right. Well,
No, I think there's
mine,
definitely there's space for new symbols to come up. You know, new symbolism in care and in different degrees of care. And that, I mean, there could be many more, but that's one that could really, it's something that people already understand, and it shows a symbolism of thinking bigger, thinking to the future of, we've made these adjustments and this is what we're up to. So it would be nice to see which symbols can show as a way that places can stand out from the rest of truly caring for their guests.
emojis.
All the emojis, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Hi, Megan.
Hi. I was just wondering, I was thinking, how do you think this gives hotels more of an upper hand again against something like an Airbnb stay in terms of what you can represent to a guest in terms of cleanliness and cleaning?
Yeah, definitely. There's been a lot of discussion about that, because to be able to implement cleaning at a high level across people's personal homes is a challenge that Airbnb is looking at right now. They're coming up with a training program for people that have Airbnbs, for hosts, to say that they've gone through the program and that this is what they need to do to show cleanliness. But I think for people that are, until that's implemented and people feel comfortable with that, I think the idea of going to another person's home that you're not really sure how, you know, severe measures they've taken to clean will be an obstacle for Airbnbs going forward.
Yeah, I'm just imagining it in my own personal preference and being a bit wary of what a place would be coming into, whereas a hotel, I would just assume more confidence with a hotel.
Right. There's also discussion of private villas potentially taking a forefront in the industry, as long as they have, you know, professional cleaners that come to the villas and that the villas are serviced.
Mm-hmm.
So then you don't have to interact with other people, but it's a bit of a higher level than an Airbnb, because it's
Well, that's their Lux program, no? That they had just rolled out.
yeah. So something like Lux or private villas, I think, could really stand out if the Lux programs are able to implement cleaning on a high level. It could be interesting.
And
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead. I was just going
Oh,
to add that. Sorry, go ahead, Megan. Interrupt
no.
you there.
There's no interruption.
Okay. Now, there's guests are also being given choices whether they want complete contactless, a complete contactless experience, or then they would rather have human arrows, as they call them. So instead of actual physical arrows on the ground, you've got human arrows standing, which is more of a Lux thing, right? And there was another interesting one there about mini bars on demand. So you pre-order your mini bar. There's a whole bunch of people saying, remove that mini bar. And there's others saying, all right, if you want your Diet Coke in there and your Mars bar, then just pre-order it, pay for it, and we'll set it up. You've mentioned
Yeah.
that as well, Kelly, I think, in your documentation there, is it not?
Yeah, and I think that'll also be some trial and error. People are used to certain standards that hotels have had. So, majority have had mini bars and all the other standards that we're used to. So there will be personal preferences on all of these points that are going to need to be observed and really listened to. And, to the point of reviews, hotels need to really be cautious and, again, empathetic and compassionate to what their guests are really wanting or needing. And maybe the contactlessness is maybe something that majority will want, to not have to speak to anyone and to be able to control everything with their phones. But perhaps people that have been in total isolation and are excited to travel don't want to be back in isolation in their hotel room and only texting someone, so it's going to be a lot of listening to the guests to see what will come out.
Well, that's sort of the beauty of a hotel, yeah. As you go to a hotel, oftentimes, because it's a little microcosm of the world, and you have run-ins with people in synchronicity, and you meet someone at the bar or whatever venue of entertainment a particular hotel has. And that's what draws people to the hotel as well. It's not just the bed to sleep in.
Right. And I think the use of the public space also gives a way to have interaction, but at a safe distance or comfortable distance. We don't even know, safety is a different topic. Does 1.5 meters really then make you immune to everything around you? I don't know. But if you have an area where people feel safe to move around each other with not, bumping into each other, but can still interact and can still feel comfortable and not feel like, you see places now with the plexiglass walls everywhere. I don't know if people are going to really feel, if that makes people feel better. I think that will also take time to see how that plays out, because we don't want to feel like we're in a sort of cage.
Cocoon, yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
I think so much depends on that first initial interaction, as you were saying before. Like, what's the initial interaction when you walk through the doors of the hotel? Because that will inform your level of safety and care, and from there you'll operate either out of fear or out of a feeling of care for your entire stay.
Right. And even before you walk through the doors, there's so many ways that hotels can relay their sentiment and how they're operating, how they're doing things, with videos, with marketing messages, with explanation of how they're feeling about it all, to kind of already attract guests towards that kind of mentality. So that, there's going to be a lot of competition with hotels. So how are guests going to choose? And I think a place that dispels fear and allows them to feel like they're taken care of, and that the staff is also, kind people, can be a big marketing angle during this time, and to keep communicating that. Because before they walk in, they have to choose the hotel, and it's going to be a really slow start for international travel. So the hotels that stand out as having a compelling message of why come stay with us, as opposed to everyone else. Again, not to compete against everyone else, but to show their compassion and let that be what leads them or makes them leaders of choice for people.
Yeah, I wonder how you like room service to me would seem more appealing at the moment, to stay in my bubble of the room and have room service. But I kind of mirror that against, again, the idea that you go to a hotel for the synchronicity of the run-in and the meeting of other people. So how do you pull them out of the room to continue to have that experience that then they talk about, once they leave the hotel?
Well, I think it's again a matter of personal preference, but offering a safe place for them to interact should they want to. I mean, I don't know if people are going to be going to hotels just to go to be in their room. I think it's going to be a, you know, a myriad of decision making of why they choose a place. So places that are able to offer a social component, but that's still safe and supported and loving, I think will be sought after a lot, because
Yeah.
people again have been isolated. So I don't think that they're going to run to isolation in their room again. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
think with business travelers now probably coming back first nationally, they and their families might care more about, you know, the hygiene standards initially. But there's so much of innovation out there. You know, there's Ovola Hotels out of Hong Kong, and they've just launched a brand new video on their room service. And at the same time, you know, when we were still, I mean, people are opening up now, but when takeout and delivery became, you know, the requirement, they were you know, serving cocktail 2 hour free flow cocktail sessions at the doorsteps of people's homes, uh, with white gloves still though, Kelly. They weren't pink. They weren't pink or red.
well, they
And
didn't get to pink yet.
yeah, they didn't get to pink yet. I think you threw that one out first. But yeah, so there's some great stuff out there. But yeah, hygiene, yeah, now is, I don't know. I'm going to go to a coffee shop later today. I'll tell you what it's like later. So yeah,
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of really listening. And like we mentioned before, there's still not enough information out there about how the guest is viewing all of this. The industry is doing a lot to show the big steps that they're taking to prove safety and hygiene, almost competing with each other of who's the most safe and who's the most clean, and getting, you know, experts involved in that process.
Hmm.
But as far as what the guest really wants, outside of, you know, what's deemed as safe, is still to be seen. So there's a lot of opportunity there, I think, to also steer the industry into a more compassionate way. You know, to prove that compassionate leadership will stand out as something that people are attracted to, and that it's not just standards and implementing spraying chemicals and wearing hazmat suits, which scares me a bit.
yeah, no. The face shield is not bad for front of the house in the current environment. It's better than a mask, I think, because at least
You mean the full face
yeah,
shield?
those see-through, yeah, the face for front of the house and back of the house can be masks.
There's some hotels that are doing clear masks,
Right.
so that
Oh, okay.
so that the staff can see the expression on people's face.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's kind of interesting. I mean, as long as it's doing its job, that's kind of interesting that you can see someone's mouth moving and their expression. It's not as confronting in some ways.
I can try to put my mask on now and see how I smile with my eyes, but
Yeah, good practicing on like winking and
it's a little further away. I know it's true. Well, hand to the heart. Like, you know, in Asia, they do the namaste and the why, and people are just used to that. But that's probably going to be different in other parts of the world as well. So I think the hand to the heart is another way of, you know, just not proactively offering your hand as a hotel employee to a guest is definitely a big no-no
yeah.
right now.
Yeah, and then it's also handling people's food and handling people's belongings or luggage.
Yeah.
So I think gloves are going to be mandatory.
Yeah.
So people will feel more comfortable to see gloves.
But also you're going to have to see, it's going to have to go a step further. You're going to have to see someone getting rid of their gloves, putting on new gloves, making sure that the cleanliness is, you know, is there. There's so many steps.
Yeah,
versus someone who's had the same gloves on all day, or you worry they have and they're touching your bag and you don't want to say anything and you already feel uncomfortable. Also where the cleaning process used to be something that happened behind the scenes. The goal was that the cleaning staff wasn't seen, right? Just their work was. And now I feel the goal will be that we're bearing witness to the cleaning staff consistently, which hopefully brings a bit more compassion as well if it's handled correctly, where we actually, as guests, compliment the people doing, jobs such as cleaning.
Yeah, I think potentially cleaners could become the front line, the stars
Right,
of the
like the
hotel,
front of house.
and
Yeah.
that they're almost, in new travelers' eyes, the most important because they're keeping them clean and safe and, like you said, more visible. So before, where it would be only during downtimes or rooms would be closed off, public rooms to be cleaned, I think people will feel more comfortable seeing the staff come through on a rotation during the busy hours to keep things clean, and to
Yeah, and
like
perhaps not
actually
even.
cleaning their tables while they're there, not to a certain
Mhm.
extent, but yeah, the visibility of cleaners, I think, will be an
Yeah,
important aspect.
and hopefully more of a humanizing, there's an opportunity to humanize for these roles and these things that were, again, sort of swept under before.
Definitely, it's a thankless job, and it's one of the most important, if not the, and most difficult in a hotel. That the time frames that cleaners have to do a perfect job is really a lot of pressure. And in hotels, if there's one hair or one thing out of place, then the cleaners get all of the wrath for that. But they've really got a high pressure job, so it'd be nice to give them some extra respect on their role.
So the guest walks in and stays at your hotel at night and then checks out the next day and comes to you and says, "I got COVID at your hotel." Oh, whoa. So what's the reaction going to be then? Talk to my insurance. Or
Yeah, that's a doozy.
it's going to come.
Yeah, it's
And it comes.
bound to
bound to
come. More
come.
people getting sick while they're in the hotel and having to be quarantined in the hotel. These are all things
Yeah.
that,
Or
Because a lot of
somebody getting sick before they arrive in the hotel. They arrive in the hotel and they blame it on the hotel.
same as alleged, I call it alleged food poisoning, right? It's the same thing, right? Is a lot of people do come up and say, you know what, I had dinner at your hotel last night, and so it's what you call alleged food poisoning, and there's an investigation that then obviously happens after, and then things are moved on to the insurance, as well. But if it's not a group of people that are, affected, then it's usually not the case anyway. But that's bound to come up now in the next little while. Or there's a fear of that happening.
yeah, for sure. And it's something that's, again, totally brand new to the industry to know how to navigate through something like that and to be prepared for it and to have the proper insurance in place, perhaps, to handle that.
I think
But
that
that one,
hotels are going to have to show their standards. They're going to just have to have documentation of everything they've done to stay clean.
for sure, there's going to be a lot of standards they're already coming out, and they're going to be expected to show what they've done to, keep up with the pressures of hygiene. Hi, Reiki. Reiki or Ricky? Is Reiki?
Reiki.
Okay. I listened
Thanks.
to your last. I listened to you a few weeks ago when you spoke at the unconference.
Oh, awesome.
It's really
Yeah,
nice.
really cool. Thanks. Yeah, this is a good discussion here, a very timely one about how we transition from this crisis and pandemic to something that's a little bit better than back to normal, right?
A little bit better than back to normal. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, I think definitely better. More
Better.
aware, more conscious. People are making decisions that they have to think about instead of just rushing to the next place or to the next thing. It's like that's not the reality anymore. Like each decision now has time to be made, and hopefully we'll stay at that pace, or at least a bit of a slower pace for a long time.
Yeah. Well, our old normal wasn't exactly perfect, so we do have an opportunity to make a new one.
Big opportunity. So
Do you think that compassion will trickle also into a sense into when with the food systems being localized, more localized? I know hotels have been, big proponents of different shops and things that are close by now during the pandemic. I wonder, and I'm hoping that it can stay that way in a sense, that people can connect also to their food because it's, the bread is coming from the bakery down the road and we know the fisherman and he drops it off, on Monday mornings, et cetera, et cetera,
yeah,
et cetera. As also in terms of health and safety, knowing that things aren't flown in necessarily unless it's an obscure item, that we're connecting and supporting our local businesses as well.
yeah. I think that local and organic are not even going to be enough. It's going to be the combination of local, so supporting local, organic, like fresh and natural, and also immune boosting. And when you can combine those three, you're showing that you're supporting the community, you're supporting the health of your guests, and you're also thinking a step farther as to like what is the food combination that we're giving to actually make you feel healthier, not just to provide food, but to actually improve your health while you're here. In a
Yeah, I
sense,
don't think it'll be a niche concept anymore, but it'll be perhaps a necessary component for the success of a hotel.
Yeah, to stand out again as a compassionate leader, this is a huge component of what you're feeding, what the options are for feeding your guests.
Perhaps in that there's something that could happen in terms of like a salon series at hotels, whereas again, hotels are these microcosms of the world, and a big reason we go is to be entertained by the other guests that are there and meeting people and being social. But perhaps some sort of salon series in hotels where you can listen to a speaker, listen to the local baker, hear from the GM, go up and give your own talk, this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where you know that it's not a party per se, but it's still a way to interact.
Yeah, very valid. So my time's coming to an end here. Don't want to hold up the next speaker. Thank you all very much for the discussion. I hope we can continue it and, have a better world to come. So thank you, Jay. Thank you, Megan.